Well, hello. Thanks for coming back to check out another video. So, I am wearing the same outfit and eye makeup because I'm filming it on the same night. But a video that you have seen either last week or the week before from me was palettes that are almost perfect. Palettes that I would change one thing about them. And so in doing that, it really made me look at my collection and see, like, are there palettes that I do actually consider them to be perfect? Like, I would not change anything about them. So my first video that I did, again, the one that was palettes that are almost perfect, was inspired by Rachael. Her YouTube channel name is Shimmers and Silver. And so I don't know if she has done a version of this where these are the palettes that are perfect for her within her collection. But since she inspired me to do the palettes that are almost perfect, and that led me down this train of thought to do palettes that are perfect, I still just want to shout her out and give her some credit. So she will, of course, again, be linked in my description box, as well as her video. And then if I can find a video of hers where she's done this, like her palettes that are perfect, I will leave that link down there as well. Alright, so you know I can't do a video without referencing BH Cosmetics, so let's just get into the two palettes from BH Cosmetics that in my personal opinion are perfect, would not change a thing about them. So the first one comes from their Say It collection. This is the Optimistic AF palette. If I open this up for you guys, this is just such a fall color story and I am here for it. Maybe part of it is because we are actually in the fall season as I am filming this, but I really do think that this is a great all year round palette for me personally. I love the variety that you get within here. I love that it goes from really light to really dark. All of the matte shadows within here play so nicely together. There is not any shadow combination in here that is going to give you a like muddy mess or like colors blending together kind of funny. I really love that within this 9-pan palette, they made some very smart choices. So keeping it like a small palette, like you can't have everything that you would want, right? So for instance, you only get this silver lining shade as the deepest shadow within here, but it's such a smart decision because it's one of those like chocolate brown kind of shadows. It does a really good job of deepening up your outer V. And again, it plays so nicely with all of these other eyeshadows within here. I absolutely love the two shimmer shades down here that they included, the LOL and the Radiate shade. So the LOL shade, it's kind of a yellowy shade, and I'm not really a yellowy shimmer girl or like a bronzy shimmer girl. I just don't like the way that those look on me. But this LOL shade very much has more orange to it, and it's got like flecks of gold to it. So it almost looks like the perfect sunset. You know what I mean? It's just so pretty. And then this Radiate shade down here, I think that on camera it's going to, for you guys, look like a brown shimmer, but it's not. It's got like a lot of pink or a lot of redness to it, like a little bit of orange to it too. So here's those three shadows that I specifically referenced. The silver lining as like the darkest shadow. It's really lovely deepening shade. And then here's LOL and Radiate. Again, they're just so pretty and so fun. I love them on their own as lid shades, but I also love fading them together, and it just makes for a really pretty eye look. So yeah, this is definitely one of my hands down perfect palettes within my collection. Alright, so my other BH Cosmetics palette that I really do enjoy, that I would not change a thing about, comes from their Sweet Shop collection. So this is their Bubblegum palette. This is the monochromatic blue one that they came out with. So I really love that this goes from really light to really dark in both shimmer and matte formula. I know you guys have heard me say in the past, I'm really not a fan of these darker shimmer shades, but in this palette it makes sense and it works. And I really love that neither one of them are like super dark and intense. Now, I probably would never wear either one of them as just my all over lid shade by themselves, but I really love putting them in my outer V and then layering one of the other two lighter shimmer shadows on top of them. I just feel like that really transforms the look. They also play really nicely on like the lower lash line if you want that kind of pop of blue color, if you're doing more of a neutral look or even a monochromatic look. The other thing that I love about this palette is that even though it is all blue, the blues have like a different undertone to them. Like, I wouldn't say it's a mix of cool and warm tones necessarily, but it's a nice mix and variety of blue shades. Like even here, these are the first two matte blue shadows swatched out, and you can see how much of a jump in the spectrum that you get. And much like with the shimmer shadows here too, one is much more of like a white base blue shimmer, and then one is more of like a sky blue, Carolina blue shimmer shade. So I just feel like this was a palette that was done really well as far as monochromatic palettes go, because you're going to get a lot of variety within there, even though it is an all blue palette. All right, so I do have 2 collaboration palettes within this stack to talk to you guys about that are perfect, that I would not change in any way. I think that the people doing the collabs behind them just nailed it spot on. So the first one is from Adept. This is their Heather Austin palette that they did in collaboration, quite obviously, with Heather Austin. So if I open this one up for you guys, this is what it looks like on the inside, trying not to glare you with the ring light. So I really do feel like a lot of people would probably look at this and be like, ooh, what a nice fall color story. And it is a really nice fall color story. But I think she did such a good job of curating an all year round palette for us as well. So this is a mostly shimmer palette. You do have 4 matte shadows. Typically I like an even split, but if it's not going to be an even split, I think I would honestly prefer more shimmer shades. That's what's fun for me. You know what I mean? I could do the same matte eyeshadows over and over again, but give me different shimmers and I'm gonna feel like I've got a new look every day. You know what I mean? So either way, the matte shadows in here though, they are so nice and well thought out. So you do get like this plummy kind of purpley one and then like a mid-tone brown, and then you've got this like kind of army green and then like a forest green in here. And so looking at it, I bet you think like, okay, well you use these 2 with like the purples and the taupes, the more neutral shades, and then you use the greens with some of these more like green shades. And that's true, you can get a really nice look that way, but it's also a lot of fun to switch it up. So take these green shadows and pair them with some of the more purple taupey shades. It's a really fun look. I've greatly enjoyed doing that. This palette has a lot of beautiful like duochromes and multi-chromes to it too. I don't think I can get that to show up on camera, but it's also got 2 of my absolute hands down favorite shades within my collection. So Passport and Austin here, and they're both the kind of shadow where depending upon what you pair them with, that's what you're going to get more of. So Passport definitely has a lot of like pink and purple and blueness to it. And so obviously if you pair it with more blue shadows, more of that blue comes out. More pinks, then more of the pink comes out. And then Austin is like this great, how do I describe this? It's like a white base shadow, but it's got like a lot of like green and gold to it. Kind of like a really nice minty shade. So I just absolutely love it. Have fallen in love with the Adept formula. And yeah, I just think Heather Austin nailed it with this collaboration. Okay, so the other collaboration palette that I was referencing that I think is absolutely perfect is from Odin's Eye. So this is in collaboration with Angelica Nyqvist. This is their Hella palette. I have to say, out of all of the palettes from the brand that I have tried, I think this one has the best formula. It doesn't have any of those satin shades in it, and it doesn't have any of those like almost cream to powder shades. Like the red shadow from the Norns palette feels like a cream to powder shadow. It's just not a shade that I like from that brand. So I'm really happy to see that with every palette they release, like their formula seems to get a little bit better. You know what I mean? So anyway, opening this one up, I absolutely love the color story of this, how you've got some really nice mustards and greens and pinks and purples and even some more of like, I would say almost blue shadows, because this river shade is like a duochrome. So it has a lot of blue and like purpleness to it. Just so pretty. I think pairing pinks and greens together is an underrated color combination. So I encourage you, if you have this palette or just some pinks and greens that you really like in your collection, pull those out and give them a shot. Like try wearing them together. You will not be disappointed. I promise. So I have to say my absolute favorite shadows within this all come basically from this bottom row. River by far is my favorite standout shade within this palette. But then I really do also love this shade Complete here. So it's not quite a black shadow, I would say. I would say it's a little bit more of like a gray, like kind of charcoal shadow. But it is a nice shimmer shade. And like I was mentioning earlier, I think I mentioned it earlier. I don't know, when you talk about a lot of palettes, sometimes you forget. But either way, this Complete shade, it's really nice to have a black shimmer within a palette. So one, it's really fun to put the black shimmer all over your lid and just do a completely colorful kind of crazy crease work, you know, thing going on. I just think that that's a lovely eye look. But then it's really nice to have the shimmer black to use in your outer V, because again, it's easier to blend a shimmer into a shimmer. And then like I said, this river shade is absolutely hands down one of my favorite shadows, much like the Passport shade from the Heather Austin palette. It just has a lot of like fun colors for me. Like I was going to say safe colors, but it's like pinks and purples and like kind of blue, you know, shiftiness to it. So maybe not a safe color, but I would call it a safe color for me and my personal makeup preference. So yeah, the Hella palette is another one that I think is absolutely perfect. All right, let's talk about my favorite, hands down, Natasha Denona palette that I think is absolutely perfect. Would not change a thing about it. So this is the Retro palette. I have went on and on about this palette. I think that this is a great fall time palette, but I also just feel like this is a great all year round palette. So if you really like berry tones, I think that you would enjoy this, and especially if you like berry tones that are more on the cooler side of things. I feel like a lot of times when we get berry tones within eyeshadow palettes, they do tend to be on the more warmer side, so it's just nice to have this more cool toned option. And I absolutely love that not only is it pinks and berries, which you would think of, like those do go together, but there's a lot of like taupey gray shades within here that play so nicely with the berry shades. It's just a lot of fun. I really love her cream to powder formula. I think that it's quite easy to work with once you understand like a good way to like work with it and build it up. So yeah, I just absolutely love this. I think that this was a great addition into my collection. I have to say that center shade, Psychedelic, it's like this nice pink shade. It's a great topper shade, so it really transforms a lot of the eyeshadows within this palette, but it's also really nice. You can build it up on itself and have just this really fun like pink moment on your lids. And it also has like a little bit of like gold shifts to it, so yeah, it just makes it really fun. But then my other favorite shadow within here would probably have to be the shade Jude down here. So again, it's just a really great kind of taupey pinky purple shadow. I just absolutely love it. Alright, so my last palette to talk to you guys about that is an absolute hands down perfect palette in my opinion comes from Juvia's Place. So this is the Festival palette. Now when I open this up, this looks like a very chaotic color story, and I agree. When I first got this palette, I was like a little bit intimidated by it, but the more that I've used it, the more I have fallen in love with it, and the more it makes sense to me. So I really love that you have this peachy shade. It pairs nicely with the orange, but the orange also pairs nicely with the mustard. The mustard pairs nicely with the pink pairs nicely with the red. Like there's just a lot that you can do within this palette. Again, it's got a really nice black shimmer shade down here, so much like with the Hella palette, put this all over your lids. Play around with some of these nice colorful bright matte shadows. You're gonna love it. Or if you want, just use this in your outer V, and again, it's easy to blend a shimmer into a shimmer. I really love, one thing that I do love to do is to take this gold shade here. It's one of the lighter shades within the palette. Do that as my inner lid shade. Do the blue like in the center and then the black shade on the outer V. And then use either this mustard shade and the pink shade together, or layer the pink with the red shadow together. I just think that it's a really pretty fun and colorful look. I also love that within this palette you can layer the pink and the red together and get more of that berry tone. So yeah, even though this seems like a bit chaotic and a bit of a hodgepodge, this is one of the most unique color stories I think I have ever come across. And once you sit down and play around with it, you're gonna find so many different color combinations that are just fun to do. And so it really elevates its status into like, it's different and more outside of the box than other palettes, you know what I mean? And so it's a hands down favorite for me, and there's not a thing in here that I would change about it. And you know what? We swatched out things from all the other palettes, so we might as well swatch out things from this palette, right? Alright, so here are some of those shimmer shades swatched out. Again, I think you guys are all familiar with like the Juvia's Place formula. Their shimmers are really soft and buttery. Their mattes are a little bit more on the drier side, but they are easy to work with and blend out. So that wraps it up for my palettes that are absolutely my favorite. Why do I keep saying my favorite? All of my palettes are favorites. But these are the palettes within my collection that I consider to be perfect palettes. Would not change a thing about them. So again, if you want to answer this for yourself in the comment section down below, let me know like what your, palettes are that you think are absolutely perfect. I always love chatting with you guys in the comment section. I hope you're having a good day, a good night, or a good whatever, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.